First contact gone wrong. The research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the Artemis system, its sensors scanning the fourth planet's surface for signs of the missing colony. Dr. James Morrison stood at the bridge's observation window, his weathered face reflecting off the reinforced glass as he studied the rust-colored world below. 3 weeks ago, all contact with the Centauri Archaeological Society's outpost had ceased without warning. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual energy readings from the surface," Lieutenant Park announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It doesn't match any known human signatures." Captain Diana Rodriguez straightened in her chair. After 20 years in the Space Exploration Corps, she learned to trust her crew's instincts. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life, displaying a thermal map of the colony site. Where there should have been the orderly arrangement of research buildings and habitat domes, there was only a sprawling field of cooling debris. And something else. "Movement. Launch the drones," Rodriguez ordered. "Keep us in high orbit until we know what we're dealing with." The reconnaissance drones descended through the thin atmosphere, their cameras transmitting crystal-clear footage to the stunned crew. The colony hadn't just been destroyed. It had been systematically dismantled. But it was what they found in the central plaza that changed everything. Hundreds of bodies lay in concentric circles, carefully arranged like some grotesque artwork. In the center, a pyramid of small forms, the colonists' children. Above them, hovering on anti-gravity fields, were 3 sleek vessels of clearly alien design. "My God," Morrison whispered, "they're still here." The alien ships detected the drones almost immediately. 3 lances of purple energy sliced through the atmosphere, vaporizing the small reconnaissance craft. But they had seen enough. Rodriguez's voice was steady as she opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Horizon. We have a Code Black situation. I repeat, Code Black. First contact scenario with hostile forces, requesting immediate." A blast of energy erupted from the planet's surface, far more powerful than what had destroyed the drones. The Horizon's shields, designed for meteorite deflection, lasted less than a second. The last thing Rodriguez saw was Morrison reaching for the emergency beacon launch controls before the bridge erupted in flames. But the beacon got away, carrying with it the footage that would change humanity forever. When it reached Earth 3 days later, the response was immediate and unprecedented. Political divisions vanished overnight. Military restrictions on advanced technology were lifted. The entire industrial capacity of the solar system was redirected toward a single purpose. Humanity had maintained a defensive military since achieving spaceflight, but had never truly prepared for war. That changed the moment Earth's leaders saw those images. The carefully arranged bodies. The children. The casual cruelty of it all. In the Nexari Empire's 1,000-year history of expansion, they had encountered many species. Some fought back with primitive weapons. Others tried to negotiate. A few even attempted to flee. But none had ever responded like the humans. Within 6 months, humanity had reverse-engineered several pieces of recovered alien technology from previous unexplained incidents. Within a year, they had built their first war fleet. Not the usual collection of hastily armed civilian ships that most species cobbled together when the Nexari came. This was something new. The ships were ugly by Nexari standards, all sharp angles and exposed weapon hardpoints. They sacrificed beauty for functionality, protection for power. They were built by a species that had decided, collectively, and with terrible resolve, that they would rather die fighting than live in a universe where children could be slaughtered with impunity. And at the heart of this new fleet was a ship unlike any other. They named it the Horizon's Justice, and its construction broke a dozen natural laws and more than a few human ones. It carried weapons that could crack planets, shields that could absorb the energy of a small sun, and a crew driven by a purpose that transcended mere vengeance. The galaxy was about to learn why every human culture had stories warning about the dangers of harming children. Legends about the terrible consequences of breaking that most fundamental taboo. The Nexari had awakened something that had slumbered in humanity's collective consciousness since they first gathered around fires and told tales of monsters in the dark. Now humanity would show the stars what it meant to become the monster that hunts the monsters. The weight of command. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the war room of Horizon's Justice, studying the holographic display of known Nexari territory. 6 months had passed since she'd accepted command of humanity's first purpose-built warship, and the weight of that responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. The Nexari don't expect us to strike directly at their core worlds, Admiral Zhang said, his weathered face floating in a calm window above the tactical display. Their psychological profiles suggest they think we'll be too cautious, too afraid of their supposed technological superiority. Chen traced a finger through the hologram, marking a path through what had once been neutral space. They don't understand us at all, do they, sir? No, Zhang agreed. They think they've seen this before. A young species, outraged by their first taste of imperial cruelty, launching a doomed crusade for revenge. They're expecting us to be predictable, to follow the same pattern as all the others. But we're not going to do that, Chen said, her voice carrying the same steel that had earned her this command. She'd been there when the beacon's data was first decoded, had seen the footage that still haunted her dreams. We're going to do what humanity does best. We're going to adapt. The fleet gathered in silence, hidden within the dust clouds of the Kuiper Belt. 50 ships, each carrying technology that would have been impossible just a year ago. Quantum computers that could predict enemy movements before they happened. Weapons that could pierce any known shield. And crews who had trained relentlessly, pushing themselves beyond normal human limits. But it wasn't just the technology that made this fleet different. It was the people. Every ship carried a memorial, photographs, and names of the children who died on that distant colony. Not to feed their rage, but to remind them of why they fought. Why they had to be better than their enemies. The Nexari had made a fundamental mistake in their assessment of humanity. They thought the species' rapid technological advancement was driven by revenge, by hatred. They didn't understand that humans were at their most innovative, their most determined when protecting others. All ships, battle stations, Chen ordered, her voice carrying across the quantum-entangled comm network. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. We're not just fighting for vengeance. We're fighting to make sure this never happens again. The fleet moved as one, jumping through folds in space-time the human scientists had once thought impossible. But they hadn't counted on humanity's greatest weapon, their ability to improvise. Multiple hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. The damage control officer reported. Automated repair systems are engaged, but we're losing power to the main guns. Chen nodded, her mind already racing through alternatives. Implement Case Thunder. All ships, execute pattern Delta 9. The human fleet suddenly broke apart, each ship seemingly moving at random. To the Nexari tactical computers, it looked like their trap had succeeded. The human formation had shattered under pressure. But Chen knew better. During the months of preparation, human scientists had made a breakthrough in understanding quantum entanglement. They couldn't use it for faster-than-light communication as they'd hoped, but they had discovered something else, a way to create temporary quantum links between ship shield systems. As the Nexari pressed their advantage, the scattered human vessels suddenly linked their defensive fields. Energy that would have overwhelmed any single ship was instead distributed across the entire fleet, transformed, and redirected. The Nexari found themselves caught in their own crossfire. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated the difference between human and Nexari warfare. As Imperial ships began to break apart under the strain, Chen's voice carried across all frequencies. To all Nexari vessels, power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. We will accept your surrender and guarantee the safety of your crews. The response was immediate and unexpected. Nearly a third of the Nexari fleet shut down their weapons. Not out of cowardice, as their commanders would later claim, but because they had never encountered an enemy who offered mercy in the middle of battle. The remaining Nexeri ships fought on, but the battle's outcome was no longer in doubt. Human vessels moved with impossible coordination, their quantum-linked systems allowing them to function as a single organism. Where the Nexeri expected them to press their advantage ruthlessly, the humans instead focused on disabling rather than destroying enemy vessels. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Rivera called out, "we're picking up transmissions from the surface. It's not just military channels. There are civilian broadcasts. News of the battle is spreading across their networks." Chen's expression remained steady, but inside, she felt a surge of satisfaction. This had always been part of the plan, not just to win a battle, but to show the galaxy a different way of fighting, a way that didn't require becoming as cruel as your enemy. The Nexeri civilians watched in shock as human ships extended magnetic fields to catch escape pods, as emergency teams in armored suits braved enemy fire to rescue crews from depressurized vessels. This wasn't how war was supposed to work, not according to everything they had been taught. But the true turning point came when the first boarding parties reached the captured Nexeri ships. They found not just military personnel, but slaves, members of dozens of species, forced to serve in the Empire's fleet. The humans' response was immediate and unequivocal. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force," her message broadcast across all frequencies, in all known languages. "To all enslaved crew members, you are hereby under the protection of humanity. Your chains end today." The impact rippled across Nexeri space like a shockwave. Centuries of imperial propaganda crumbled in the face of actual footage, showing humans risking their lives to save former enemies. The Empire had always maintained that humans were savage primitives, seeking blind revenge. Now their own people could see the truth. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Patel worked tirelessly alongside his team, treating wounded from both sides without distinction. When a young Nexeri officer asked why they were receiving the same care as human casualties, his response became legendary. "Because this is who we are. This is what we're fighting to protect." But even as the battle wound down, Chen knew this was just the beginning. The Nexeri Empire spanned hundreds of systems, and its ruling class wouldn't give up power easily. They would learn from this defeat, adapt their tactics, try to find new ways to exploit what they saw as human weakness. They didn't understand that humanity's compassion wasn't a weakness, it was the source of their strength. Every rescued enemy became a potential ally. Every act of mercy created ripples that would eventually become waves. Unexpected allies. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On 1,000 worlds, in countless languages, beams gathered around communication terminals to watch the footage. Humans, the supposed savages from the rim of known space, had not only defeated a Nexeri battle fleet, but had done so while refusing to abandon their principles. In the aftermath of the battle, Captain Chen found herself in an unexpected role: diplomat. The Horizon's justice had become a symbol, and its observation deck was now hosting representatives from species that had suffered under Nexeri rule for generations. "Your tactics were unprecedented," said Ambassador Catal of the Vereen, their crystalline form refracting light as they spoke. "In all our years of resistance, we never considered using mercy as a weapon." Chen stood before the gathered representatives, her dress uniform a stark contrast to their varied forms. "We didn't do it as a tactic. We did it because it's who we are. Humanity has fought enough wars among ourselves to know that how you win matters as much as winning itself." The ship's quantum computers were working overtime, translating the conversation into dozens of languages simultaneously. Each species heard not just the words, but the emotions behind them, another innovation born from humanity's drive to understand and connect. "But the children," rumbled Exor-chan, their massive form barely fitting in the observation deck's doorway. "When we saw what the Nexeri had done, we expected different actions from your kind." "Rage?" Chen asked quietly. "Vengeance. We felt those things. Still feel them. But we chose to be better than our anger. The children we lost would want us to build a better galaxy, not just tear down the old one. The meeting was interrupted by urgent news from the quantum network. Across Nexari space, slave revolts had broken out on dozens of worlds. The Empire's grip was slipping, not through force of arms alone, but through the power of hope. The footage of humans treating their prisoners with dignity, of offering freedom without conditions, had sparked something that centuries of oppression couldn't extinguish. But it was what happened next that truly changed the course of the war. The Varine, with their mastery of crystalline technology, the Exor-Chen, whose great ships could withstand the pressure of gas giant cores, the Meridians, with their understanding of particle physics that even humans found advanced. One by one, they pledged not just support, but alliance. We have fought separately for centuries. Catal observed, their crystalline form pulsing with inner light. Perhaps that was our mistake. The Nexari maintained power not through superior strength, but by keeping us divided. Chen watched as the alliance took shape before her eyes. Each species brought unique perspectives, technologies, and ways of thinking. Humanity's role wasn't to lead through force, but to show that cooperation was possible, that different species could work together without sacrificing their principles or identity. The Horizon's justice became a testing ground for this new cooperation. Human quantum computers linked with Varine crystal matrices, Sword-Chan gravitational technology, enhanced human shield systems. Meridian scientists worked alongside human engineers, combining their understanding of physics in ways neither species had imagined possible. But the most powerful weapon wasn't technological at all. It was the spread of information. The Nexari had maintained control partly through isolation, convincing each species that they were alone in their resistance. Now, quantum-entangled communication networks carried the truth faster than the Empire could suppress it. Even some Nexari began to question their society's foundations. Young officers who had witnessed human mercy firsthand spread their stories. Workers in the shipyards began sabotaging weapon systems. The Empire's rigid hierarchy, once a source of strength, became a weakness as it failed to adapt to this new kind of warfare. They expect us to act like them, Chen told her growing coalition, to respond to cruelty with cruelty, to seek revenge above justice. That's why we'll win, not because we're stronger, but because we're fighting for something bigger than victory. The alliance grew stronger each day, but Chen knew the real battle was still to come. The Nexari Empire's ruling council would not surrender easily. They would see this cooperation between species as a threat to everything they had built over centuries. And they were right, just not in the way they thought. Justice and mercy. The Nexari homeworld hung in space like a jewel, its azure oceans and crystalline cities reflecting the light of its binary suns. Before it, the combined fleet of the Noob Alliance held position, not in attack formation, but in a wide circle that spoke more of containment than conquest. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of Horizon's justice, watching as the final pieces of their plan fell into place. The quantum network hummed with activity as ships from 24 species coordinated their movements with perfect precision. But their greatest weapon wasn't the assembled firepower. It was the truth. Signal from the surface. Communications Officer Rivera reported. The civilian broadcasts are, they're showing everything. The footage from the colony massacre, our rescue operations, the liberation of the slave worlds. Someone inside the Empire is making sure their people see it all. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The young Nexari officers they had rescued months ago had done more than just return home. They had become agents of change within their own society. The Empire's strict control of information had been its foundation for centuries. Now that foundation was crumbling. Message from the Imperial Palace, Rivera announced. The High Council demands our immediate withdrawal. They're threatening to use their planetary defense systems. Send them our response, Chen ordered. The same message, on all frequencies. The quantum computers activated, broadcasting not just words but images across every communication channel on the planet. The faces of children, not just the human colonists who had died, but children from every species the Nexeri had oppressed. Alongside each image was a simple message: they deserved better. So do you. The response was beyond anything they had anticipated. Across the planet, Nexeri citizens took to the streets. Not in panic or riot, but in silent protest. They had lived for generations believing their empire's actions were necessary for stability, for progress. Now they saw the cost of that belief written in the faces of countless innocent victims. Multiple launches detected. Tactical Officer Wong called out. Imperial warships rising from the surface. But their weapons are powered down. They're broadcasting on open channels. The messages flooded in, ship after ship declaring they would no longer serve an empire built on the suffering of children. The very weapons the Nexeri had used to maintain their power were now being turned, not in violence, but in rejection of violence itself. The High Council, in their sealed chambers beneath the Imperial Palace, prepared to activate their final weapon, a device capable of destroying their own planet rather than surrendering. But they never got the chance. Their own guards, members of the most elite and loyal units in the Empire, made the choice their ancestors had failed to make generations ago. Captain, Rivera said, her voice thick with emotion, we're receiving a transmission from the Imperial Palace. The High Council, they're being arrested by their own people. The revolution wasn't won with a massive battle or a single heroic action. It was won by thousands of small choices, by individuals deciding they would no longer be part of a system that valued power over life. The empire that had stood for 1,000 years fell not to superior firepower, but to the power of truth and conscience. In the days that followed, Chen found herself in that same observation deck, but this time facing a very different gathering. Representatives from every species, including the Nexeri themselves, had come together not to plan war, but to build peace. We cannot undo the past, she told them, but we can learn from it. Humanity came to the stars seeking knowledge, friendship, and understanding. What we found was a nightmare, but we refused to let that nightmare define us. Instead, we chose to show the galaxy another way. The alliance that had formed to fight the Empire now transformed into something greater, a confederation of species united not by fear or force, but by shared principles. The Nexeri, under their new government, began the long process of making amends, turning their technological prowess to healing the wounds they had caused. On a distant world, where a human colony had once stood, a memorial was built. But it wasn't just a monument to those who had died. It was a promise to the future. The children of 1,000 species would come there to learn not just about the darkness that sentient beings were capable of, but about the light that could overcome that darkness. The warning that humanity had delivered to the galaxy was clear, but it wasn't the one anyone had expected. Yes, humans would fight with terrifying efficiency when provoked. Yes, they would rise up against cruelty with unprecedented speed and innovation. But their true strength lay not in their capacity for war, but in their capacity for forgiveness, for seeing beyond revenge to something greater. As the Horizon's justice prepared to return home, Shen took one last look at the transformed Nexeri homeworld. The quantum network was alive with messages of cooperation, of joint scientific ventures, of cultural exchanges. Humanity had come seeking to avenge their children, but in doing so, they had helped create a galaxy those children would have been proud to inherit. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the hope that had replaced fear in the hearts of countless beings. The lesson was clear. True strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to show mercy, even in the face of unforgivable acts. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, and their promise to keep. The end.